They called him the king of the gods, but behind the thunder, behind the clouds that crown Olympus, hides a truth older, darker, and far more human. Power, desire, fear. These are not mortal weaknesses. They are divine, and no god embodied them more completely than Zeus. This is not the tale of a hero or of a wise ruler sitting upon a golden throne. It is the story of what happens when absolute power meets the deepest flaws of the human soul. It is the story of Zeus, the serial predator of Olympus. Every culture creates its gods in its own image. The Greeks, brilliant and tragic, shaped their gods not as ideals, but as reflections of themselves. Jealousy, lust, pride, cruelty, the divine and the human intertwined. Zeus was not a god of virtue. He was a god of dominance. To understand Zeus, we must first understand where he came from, because his hunger for control was born from chaos itself. Before the rule of Zeus, there was Kronos, a titan who devoured his own children, fearing they would rise against him. From that horror, Zeus was hidden, saved by his mother, Rhea, raised in secrecy while his siblings were swallowed alive. When he grew strong, Zeus returned, forced Kronos to vomit his brothers and sisters, and overthrew him. It was a son's rebellion, but it carried the seed of something darker, the belief that betrayal is justified if it brings power. From the very beginning, Zeus learned that violence creates order, that fear maintains it, and that became his law. When the Titans fell, Zeus divided the universe among his brothers, Poseidon ruling the sea, Hades the underworld, and Zeus the sky. But even as the ruler of heaven, Zeus wanted more than a throne. He wanted submission. His authority was not built on wisdom, but on desire. He governed through fear and seduction, through punishment and reward. Mortals prayed to him for rain, and trembled at his storms. Gods obeyed him, and envied his power. He called himself the protector of justice, yet his reign was a series of violations, of trust, of loyalty, of will. Zeus's myths follow a rhythm, one that mirrors the cycles of abusers, not saviors. He deceives, he disguises, he takes, and he abandons. Europa, lured by a gentle white bull, carried away to Crete. Leda, approached as a swan under moonlight. Danae, visited as a shower of golden light through the roof of her prison. Io, turned into a cow to hide her shame. These are not romantic stories, they are warnings. Each disguise represents manipulation, the transformation of threat into trust. Zeus didn't conquer through force alone. He conquered through illusion. The Greeks encoded psychological truth in these myths. Predators don't look like monsters. They look like what you want to believe in. Power in mythology is divine, but in psychology, it's corrosive. When one being becomes untouchable, when no one can say no, something fundamental begins to rot inside. Zeus represents that rot made sacred. He punished Prometheus for giving fire to mankind. He drowned entire cities in rage. He cursed Hera's rivals instead of facing his own guilt. And still, the Greeks prayed to him. They knew he was unjust, but they also knew that injustice is often the foundation of the world itself. They weren't naive. They saw in Zeus not goodness, but truth. The truth that power rarely serves justice. Perhaps the most tragic story in Olympus is not the thunderbolt or the wars of gods, but the silent war between Zeus and Hera. Hera, the goddess of marriage, was humiliated again and again. Each betrayal became another scar. But she couldn't rebel, for rebellion against Zeus meant the destruction of Olympus itself. So her anger found another target, not Zeus, but the women he hurt. Io, Semele, Callisto, all suffered not because they sinned, but because Hera could not strike the one who did. Their stories reflect an ancient understanding. When power cannot be challenged, pain is displaced downward. The innocent carry the burden of the powerful, and in that, the myths become timeless. What drove Zeus? Not hunger for love requires equality. Not lust, for lust is mortal and fleeting. What Zeus sought was confirmation, proof that he was supreme, desired, feared, obeyed. Every conquest, every deception, every punishment was a reminder that he could do what no one else could. That he was untouchable. This is the essence of divine narcissism. A being who cannot be refused, cannot be corrected, cannot be changed. He becomes trapped in his own illusion, a prisoner of absolute freedom. In human psychology, we call this omnipotent delusion. The belief that one's will defines reality. Zeus was its perfect embodiment. But even gods cannot escape consequence. Zeus's actions shattered lives, families, and fates. From his choices came Hercules, doomed to madness. Helen, whose beauty would ignite the Trojan War. Perseus, Dionysus, Apollo, all carried the legacy of their father's chaos. Every mortal tragedy in Greek myth can be traced in some way to Zeus's desire. It's as though the Greeks were whispering, "The world is broken not because of mortals, but because of the gods who rule them." And perhaps, in a quiet way, they were speaking about themselves, about kings who believed they were chosen by heaven, about men who used power as permission, about the endless repetition of divine mistakes in human form. Zeus remains the god of justice, yet he embodies injustice. He is the source of order, yet born from chaos. He is worshipped as protector, yet feared as violator. This contradiction is not an accident, it is the message. The Greeks didn't hide Zeus's darkness, they preserved it. Because they understood that divinity without morality is not godhood, it's tyranny. They saw that even the sky, vast and eternal, can hold storms that destroy as much as they give life. Zeus stands as a mirror, reflecting the truth that power and virtue rarely coexist. That every empire, every throne, every god begins with the same illusion. I am just because I am strong. But strength is not justice, and the Greeks, through Zeus, remind us that the universe itself might be ruled by might, not by right. When we read these myths today, they feel distant, symbols carved in stone, but their message still breathes in our world. We still build systems that reward dominance. We still mistake fear for respect. We still worship power, even when it harms us. Zeus is not gone. He lives in every leader who silences the weak, in every institution that hides its guilt behind greatness, in every person who believes consequence is for others. The Greeks left us a warning, not a hero. And if we forget that warning, we repeat his story, over and over again. In the next episode, we turn to Hera, the queen of Olympus, and uncover how vengeance became her form of survival. Because even gods can be victims of the power they helped create.